I can hear you. All set? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Strategic Priorities, Communication, and Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee meeting for Thursday, January 30th, 2025 in the Parkdale Room, City Hall. I will now call the meeting to order. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
Hearing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have Councillor McKinnon?
So, Mr. Chair, it's just on the table. I just want to go under new business, just to,
I'm just gonna get to the new business here. That's the last item, I think, on the agenda, correct?
but I wanted, can I add it to the agenda now? It's under, approval of the agenda, I want to add it under new business, rather than get to new business and add it there. It's about the housing issue at UPEI and the UPEI Students' Union
Okay,
would like to meet with us.
okay. And that falls under our intergovernmental, or strategic, or intergovernmental?
UPEI Student Union is a level of government at the university.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so just moving back to approval of the previous minutes from November 28th, 2024.
As amended, approved. All approved.
Councillor McKinnon, second by Deputy Yanko, Deputy Mayor Yanko. Now we're gonna move into our discussion items and reports for today. So our first item under section A are budgets, so we'll
Number
have a
4.
discussion, pardon me?
Sorry, Chair. You missed number 4, approval of the.
Oh, no, I said that, that's what we just did.
We just did the.
We just did the approval, yeah. We're moving into budget, so IT capital budget, I think was gonna be presented by Rory. Are you gonna present that to us?
Yeah. Do you guys want this on the screen or you just follow
I
along
think for
from here?
public purposes, does it not have to be on the screen?
It'd be great, yeah.
Just give me a second here. Okay, so main points here are the 2025-2026 column over here. So we've got 6 items that we're looking to have approved for the 2025-2026 calendar. So we've got computers, we're 120,000, it's just our standard ask, nothing extra, just looking to replace what we have aging out. We go down to rugged devices, it's 90,000, it's a bigger ask this year because those are for the police vehicles. And each vehicle just needs a rugged tablet, and it's a pretty expensive setup to get it into the car.
So Rory, just, sorry on that.
Yeah, sure.
For both the computer hardware and those rugged, what's the life cycle of these assets typically?
The rugged tablets, we usually go anywhere from 5 to 8 years. Depends, if it breaks early, we'll replace it early, but it's typically 5 to 8. And then for computers, it's 5 to 6.
And is there a refresh program for that, like internal? Like, is that just something based on performance of the hardware reported by staff? Or do you have a program where they are
It's
essentially coming to end of life warranty anyways?
typically as the warranty expires, that's when
As
we're,
the warranty expires, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And if you could just remind me again.
Yep.
Why are police items coming through your budget? We went through this last year and there's no consistency. Some come through this budget, some of them don't. So it's not really giving us a true reflection of what an IT budget is because only some of it comes through you, some of it goes into their own budgets.
so in this case, it's just because it's a computer. So it's just the computer and the electronic setup, so
Oh, I know that, but
we provide those for every department.
but when we go to the other budgets, I can guarantee you there'll be other IT related things that will fall into those budgets, cause that's what happened last year. So I think we talked about having it consistent that all IT related things were either gonna be in one place or another, so I'm just earmarking that again, flagging that as something we talked about last year.
It is on our list to kind of figure out
Right.
exactly where, I think it just didn't make the top of the priority list this year, that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so it still isn't then?
Sorry, what's
There's
it?
still crossover then, right,
Yeah, still a little bit.
okay.
Did you,
if I may, we may have a chance to pull, most of the items in the IT budget that are department specific are police related. We may wanna pull those out and put them in the police budget, but it'll be a presentation thing. It's important that IT maintains control of the licensing and the maintenance of the software, so they need to know what's going on and continue to do that. But it's probably more appropriate that the budget for that item is in police, if you will, and we'll be dealing with the same thing with the permitting system for planning. It should probably live in planning, not in IT, so we'll try to refine that. There are some other categorization, classification things that we'd like to do, but we don't wanna confuse the process too much in midstream, as we'd like to have some consistency from year to year, so you folks and others can draw
Yeah,
good
so-
comparisons from year to year.
So, Mr. Chair, so we buy the hardware. The license is separate. So we don't need the hardware here, we can just have the licensing in this budget. Like, and that's with other areas of capital assets. These are assets we're buying. Software is not an asset.
No.
So that could go in here rather than, again, as the deputy mayor was saying, that we've been trying to streamline or make sure that each are in their own laneways. So again, why do we have to go back to it when it was already floated last year? That we should be identifying those capital expenditures and put them in the appropriate budgets. Now, if there's any side deals or side parts to it, like licensing, that goes into the budget where it belongs.
Well, I'm not sure, I'm opposed to having hardware, like IT hardware assets in the IT budget. I mean, it certainly consolidates all of that into that budget and support. Procurement can be done through there, so I think there's room for discussion around this where it's applicable. You know, like when we talk about, if we've seen other policing things in here, like sirens and stuff like that, we might say, well, someone could obviously argue, well, that's got some IT components too, and that wouldn't make entirely a whole lot of sense. But I think when we're talking about possibly computer hardware assets, it might make sense too. So I think there's a good discussion around this that could happen either way. Because that way they might get into all the departments starting to formulate their own IT asset budgets, and then I don't know how you're gonna manage that from a spend perspective. You're certainly gonna manage it from an operational upkeep, but that could get challenging, and I speak from experience here on this, in the way in which that might be more manageable.
So does every other department have no IT expenses in all of their budgets? I mean, who's paying for the IT stuff that's in the public works and the parks and rec vehicles, or the computers, their phones, like, I mean,
It's my assumption would that be all in here too.
it's not though.
if I can speak to that, just as far as computers, so that'd be anything like a tablet, a laptop, anything like that, those all fall under the IT budget, so you wouldn't see any computer budget, any computer hardware within any of the other departments aside from water and sewer. And they do their own.
And police,
Well, police, we purchase all of their devices within IT as well.
and fire,
Fire's in there as well.
right?
Yep.
Water and sewer is just separate because they're a
It's a
separate
separate
corporation.
Yeah, so all other departments fall, as far as the computers and laptops,
But
they're
not fire and
within
that,
those
yeah.
budgets, yeah.
Rory, I know you don't attend the finance committee, standing committee finance and administration standing committee meetings, but I thought we made it a plan to do the capital budget first. This is several meetings I've been at where we're doing both. I thought we wanted to get the capital budget through first, like this mixing back and forth operational capital. We wanna get these tenders out ASAP. Like last year, we didn't do it, we waited until March 31st. And then we could have discussions about the capital assets that we wanna purchase and that we want to put in each of the departments. Fleet management for police vehicles falls under public works. So that's an item that we don't see because fleet management for those 8 vehicles we purchased, or 8 more that we wanna purchase, fall under a different category. So I think we have to get back, and I'll be bringing this up at the next standing committee for finance and administration. Let's concentrate on the capital so we don't mix it all up and get it going.
Yeah, fine, if that's what we want to, is because we have both of them on here.
We do.
I mean, I don't know if they're light, but.
If I could just say one thing, the capital budget was ready for presentation about a month ago, we just
Yeah.
didn't have a meeting, that's all. So it's just the timing of the meetings
It's a
didn't line
timing
up.
thing, we gotta wait again, like, let's just see what we make through here. Okay, so great point, Councilor Bennett?
Just a question for Rory, thank you, Mr. Chair. The rugged devices, what's the cost per unit? Cause it's 90,000 this year and then it drops down to 15.
Yeah, it's
What's,
usually, the rugged device itself is usually about $5,000. And then there's cradle to go along with it, so it's usually about $8,000 for the whole setup.
so,
And we're looking to purchase around 10 or 11 of them because we've got a backlog from this year.
And there are 8 new SUVs that are being outfitted.
yeah,
So, again, back on, just to wrap on the great points by all on that topic, I think there's some discussion that we can have around that. That can meet in the middle on both of those arguments, so, let's you continue through your line items, if you will.
Sure. So the next account that we have is for fiber network cabling. So this is, we've had it kind of on the books for a few years now. It's just whenever the fiber network from the utility is finished, it's just allows us to connect in and utilize that so that we don't have to pay for connections through Bell. So it's just so we can use that fiber network when it's complete.
Never had, when it's complete, never fiber up.
That's an ongoing issue.
Okay, I'm just not, I'm joking.
I are you.
Thank you, Rory.
Then we've got the network modernization, we're in the final stage of that, just updating all of the networks that we can do. Basically, the big important piece is quality of service, so we can prioritize traffic like voice over IP. Right now, our network is not smart enough to do that, so all of the traffic is competing equally, and we see a lot of poor quality calls when we do Teams. Moving on to the next one, it's contingency, it's $40,000, that's in there, so that in the event that we have a server die, we don't wanna have to wait for council approval, because it's something that we need to purchase right away, and we don't wanna wait 2 months to replace it.
Sorry, Rory, I'm just made my sheet small here. Was it police forensic server 40,000?
No, that one was from the 24-25 year, so that one's already complete.
it was like
Okay, no,
20,000.
yeah, I'm just not lining it up here, it's just so
Yeah.
small.
I know,
It's
same.
Sorry, I'm trying to catch the lines. Okay, thank you.
And then the final item is for McAleer Drive, so we're combining kind of 3 pieces here. There's a Cat 6 upgrade for the Ethernet cabling within the building. It's about 20 years old and we have poor speeds and poor connections within the building. There's also a connection between all of the buildings that the city owns in that area. We're looking to have those connected by fiber so we don't have to pay Bell again. And then there's also the network gear to support that.
Any questions on those? They seem pretty standard
Pretty standard.
operating procedure to keep the backbone of the city running from the network perspective. Not hearing anything there,
So just one question, Nori, looking at your 24-25 forecast.
Yep.
So what your budget last year was 645 and you really spent just 394.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
looking for 440 this year, is that what it is?
that's correct.
that's correct.
And the reason there is that much difference is because there's a few projects that we haven't been able to do, yeah.
That's good.
Perfect. Okay, so I know it was suggested that, would this be the appropriate time to go through the IT operational budget new initiatives? I think due to time, like I said, if we had had this meeting a month ago, we would have had it, and I don't know if we have time to come back to then have a separate. And since we're here and we probably could run through that relatively quickly, do
straightforward,
we agree to go forward with that? Okay.
But the point I made was that we have to get our capital budget
Yeah.
out first. And
Totally agree with the point of
let's,
it.
let's move on with the
Yeah.
operational.
Thank you.
What
guys
page
good?
is that in the budget book? my book from 24-25.
I'm not sure.
Is it under finance administration? Capital is separate because it has information technology. If I look through, where is it at, do you know? Go ahead.
So Rory, are you taking this one on as well?
The operating budget, yeah,
Proceed then,
yep, I'm just gonna find it here, cause I'm not sure.
page 11.
Page 11.
Starting.
City government, try 21.
Yeah, so the operating budget is looking like a total of 1.4 million. There's 1.4 million is just our standard,
That's it.
just standard operating. 76,000 in new initiatives, there's one of those that we are probably not going to move forward on. And then 170,000 in partner funding. That partner funding is for the planning and permitting system that we're looking to put in place. So if we move down to the actual numbers.
Okay.
1.4 million
Yeah, 1.4,
change,
sorry.
1.4 million and change.
Yep. So I think the only two that have substantial change, or three actually have some change. The big change here is for the planning and permitting solution. So that planning and permitting solution is estimated to be about $210,000. And those funds are supposed to be coming through the Housing Accelerator Fund. That includes implementation cost plus licensing, so the per year cost is not expected to be $200,000 every year. And then moving down to desktop software, that's going up 21,000. That's just because Office 365 licensing has increased a little bit, quite a bit more than expected. So we just need a little bit more to be able to maintain those licenses. IT travel, we bumped that up a little bit because the IT staff have moved out to McAleer Drive, we're just traveling a little bit more. All of the other line items we're keeping status quo, no increase. If there's any questions on
Just
any
on
of those.
the IT phones, you know, it's a significant portion of your operational budget at 380,000. Is that for phones in like desktop and cell phone packages and purchases, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so that's for a little bit of everything, but it also includes, and the name is probably not the best name for it. It also includes radios for police and fire, the licensing for those, not the actual
Okay,
devices.
so that breaks down further to that, cause yeah, like when I'm seeing like phones, I was saying that's
Yeah.
a substantial budget for phones, but it encompasses, I guess it goes back to the same debate as, you know, radios and, you know, whether they're, I see how that's communications and I see how that's IT, so I can see how it would reside in here.
Yep.
But not being duplicated, I guess, is that radios for both parks, police and
Yes.
public works?
Across the whole
Right across
organization.
the whole fleet,
Yep.
or right across the whole administration?
So Rory, the planning and, through the chair.
Yeah.
So the e-permitting system, that's gonna be taken out of the operational budget for planning and heritage? So it's not in there both, cause it's there,
That's correct,
It's
yeah,
already in.
it's only
Seen
supposed
it,
to be in
so-
one, yeah.
okay.
Whichever, I'm not sure where it will end up sitting, but
Right, but
yeah,
well, right now
we'll-
it's in both, so
yeah.
it kinda gives
It-
us a bit of a false idea of what we're spending operationally if you're putting it in both areas.
I think the discussion we had was that it would remain in IT, I think, yeah.
We'll resolve that and make sure there's no duplication, yeah.
Right, yeah, I'll be watching.
We're actually doing that today, Deputy, through you, Chair. We're tidying up everybody's budgets this afternoon, right
Perfect.
after this meeting.
Okay.
So any duplication will be picked up by 5 o'clock today.
Perfect, excellent,
So, Mr. Chair, so
thank you.
we keep pushing all these items around different budgets. Like, we're not getting a true picture of what police are actually spending in capital. We're not getting a true picture of what they're spending in operational. Like, that's what I find, and this has been going on since I was on council back in 2006. There must be a point when we can identify what's spent in capital for planning. Identify what's spent in planning for operations, like, we have to get, so we can see a true picture of who is like, when I look at Rory's budget here, Rory budgeted 1.2 million, and your forecast will be about 1.2 million, correct?
Yep.
So, but that's also subsidizing or carrying costs for other departments, so we have to, again, it has to be both in capital and operational.
I guess, your worship, through you, Chair, I think one thing that's important to realize that because we have grown so much in service delivery, we now have departments where we didn't used to have departments. So, I mean, we had someone doing IT off the side of their desk in finance department once upon a time. So we couldn't compare apples with apples when we look from 10 years ago to today and what we're spending in IT. And I think the idea of putting things in proper groupings is always gonna be a work in progress as the city continues to grow. Cause we didn't used to even have an IT department.
Yeah, no, IT, we've had it since 2019, a very active department,
Yeah.
very efficient department. It's just that I'm trying to improve the efficiency so that we can understand what's being spent where and how we can account for it. Just a good old CPA accounting.
Through you, Chair. We've got a lot of our costs serve a number of different functions and departments. So administration, CEO's office, IT, communications, our public works department does work for Parks and Recreation. We don't have a very robust cost accounting system to kind of charge those off to the appropriate departments. It is something that we'd like to develop as we go along. It was something we were challenged with when we were pulling our data to have presentation of our actual cost to deliver policing and road maintenance when we were talking to the province about funding. And so we had to go into a number of different budgets and then pull some of those costs out and allocate them based on percentage of salaries or so on. So it's something that we don't have a cost accounting system now. It's kind of rudimentary and it's been based on what was done 10 years ago and hasn't been updated really very much since, but it's certainly something that we'd like to work on and develop, yeah.
Would like to and we should be doing.
Well, yeah.
But just on that, I think, like, going back to, I see cases where that can work. But I think when it comes to something like a centralized service like IT services all across the organization, they would have to have their own budget. Like, if you're suggesting that in some ways, like we say here, like for instance, this IT phone section, 380,000 encompasses all across. But if you wanna break that out individually and put it over into each of their own buckets, so you know, I mean, I don't know the value in that. I mean, ultimately you wanna know what police is spending capital-wise from their perspective, but these corporate assets could still be managed over here in its own budget. So, you know, how granular you wanna get, I guess, is what that really boils down to.
Exactly.
Fleet would be, you know, maybe that's a good example of, well, you know, some of it's bought here and some of it's bought there, and it's not really reflecting that maybe. But again, you can make the argument, let's have a completely fleet division, and they manage all the fleet and all the budget for that, and it doesn't matter whose
Fleet
where it's
it
out.
is,
So
yeah.
I can see this.
No, I follow
Picture.
on the point that the deputy made regarding e-permitting. E-permitting is in planning and development.
Yeah.
And
So
it's in this
from
budget.
that, yes,
So I
yes.
think what we have to do is,
From that perspective, I see
we have to
that
keep
too,
a
yeah.
close eye on what's going on.
Yeah. Just one last question, just on the operational budget here. With regard to the website and the maintenance and support of that, is that done externally? And if so, does that fall under the SLA?
Yeah.
And hosting?
Yeah, that's correct. It is all hosted externally and those funds
That's that
come from there.
$73,000 budget line item?
Yep, that's included in there.
And the reason I bring that up is, I was gonna wait till new business, and I still can, I'll wait till new business to bring up my new business. Okay, any other questions on it seems pretty straightforward, I don't have any questions or concerns about it at this point. If we're subjected to cuts, then I guess we'll have to come back and maybe won't be getting as many cell phones, and that seems to be where the biggest
Get the phones off the wall.
budget is. So, any questions from the committee? Okay, so from there, we will move to, sorry to jump back to the agenda, city government strategic priorities. Or sorry, no, communications, my bad, sorry, communications.
Did your new initiatives, getting missed?
I think that on the agenda it did.
I can speak to that, Chair, if you'd like.
Someone like, yeah, sorry, did I not have the right agenda, or,
No, I can speak to the comms budget if you like.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Could you tell me what page it's on?
It's on
Your new initiatives
17 of
are-
our,
17.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we did miss the IT's new initiatives.
oh, okay,
It,
yeah.
it comes before your
Yes, it did. I
comms
seen
and
that.
strategic city government
So we have,
15
on the agenda.
one item there, I think,
Uh,
digital evidence management.
Yeah, and there is a second item as well, but that's it's probably not going to be included in this year's budget. So the first new initiative is for digital evidence management. It's software for the police to allow them to carry evidence to the court digitally. I think I can see from the mayor's, he's gonna bring up the same point.
Should be under police.
Well, and not only that, because they can probably get funding for that through police. IT department's not gonna get the funding if they can, yeah, I just find you're always going back and forth from one budget to another to try and get some consistent, comparison. Anywho,
I-
sorry to interrupt.
I can see
you.
both sides of this coin very easily. It really comes down to, in my opinion, management and procurement of the licensing and such of that, and who manages that overall. Because like I said, if you start putting pockets of IT into the other areas of the departments, then you're going to lose that centralized control and I don't mean control in
And
the way of
oversight.
an oversight of
Yeah.
that. So again, it's just, I see it, and it's not a bad argument, it's just, I think it's a management question. It really comes down to where's the most appropriate place to procure, fund, and manage these assets, whether they're hardware or software. 'Cause software can be considered an asset as long as it's not subscription based. Because you physically own that, and especially if you're purchasing it, there's a value to it. So it's probably bigger debate for the state. You're gonna bring it up to finance, and maybe
Oh, yeah.
that's the most appropriate place to have the debate of.
And Mr. Chair, I think I understand the arguments on both sides, as you have stated. I think what the deputy's trying to articulate, if I'm hearing her properly, is that, and same with the mayor, that we're finding it in different places and we just need to be consistent. But the other piece too is it should reside wherever they're going to lead. So if this is in the IT department's budget, they're the ones that are gonna be rolling out the RFPs and doing all the work required. It's not likely going to come from the police department, it's going to come from here. So they know when it's in their budget, they will take charge of the file, if you will, whether it's Public Works, IT, or whatever. If we put initiatives in budgets where they're not going to be playing a leadership role, or they're not the subject matter experts, then it's gonna fall off the end of the table, is what could happen
That's why I said the
potentially,
management,
right?
right?
So that's my only argument for letting the IT stuff reside in IT, is that Rory can then quarterback whatever needs to get done. And if there is, to your point, Deputy, a funding opportunity, then he will work with whatever department is able to access that kind of funding. But it's still being led out of IT, which is the subject matter expert on this kind of
Yeah,
budget.
but IT doesn't take it over after the tender is awarded.
No.
It's taken over by police,
Oh,
which becomes
absolutely.
a service that they provide. Which should be
Exactly.
accounted to their ledger, not to the ledger that is with IT.
If I may, Chair. I think there's two issues. One is the care, custody, and leadership of the IT service and hardware, which clearly I think we're all in agreement that needs to reside with the IT staff. But then there's the other issue of allocating the cost of their work and their tools to the people that are using it. So we can do cost allocation outside of the care, custody, control, and leadership of those assets and those operations. And that's an accounting magic versus who's looking after it, who's leading it, who's making the decisions, and council will make decisions based on Rory's recommendations in terms of server, servers and so on. But whether they're being charged to one department or other, we can make those allocations outside of it. That hasn't been done traditionally. In most cases, we do a little bit of it with water and sewer. We charge water and sewer $1 million for the use of the water for fire services. So it's done a little bit selectively. It's something we perhaps can do more effectively later on, but I think we all agree that the leadership, care, custody, control, and operations needs to stay as a corporate service and move forward on that basis.
Again, thanks, thanks for all the great opinions, and I think we need to take that offline, like I said, figure out, we could do that on every item here possibly. But nonetheless, this digital evidence management is a new request, whether it's going to come from here or come from policing, where it gets slated at the end of the day, I guess we can sort that out. So Rory, we cut you off there, I know you were.
Sure.
Get back to that one.
So yeah, this is it's rated a critical piece for the police. It's our number one priority new initiative. Again, the main purpose of this is to reduce the the load on the police who have to carry evidence to the courts. They're the court officers making 5 copies of every piece of evidence, printing off 1,000 pages. It's a lot of wasted paper as well. I'm not sure that we'd recover $30,000 a year from that, but it will be saving a lot of time and headache and paper.
Right. But your staff will not be doing the work.
The
That'll be
work, no,
police,
but
they'll be doing that work.
we
The end
will,
user will be police.
the end user will be police, but IT will be managing the system and administering it. So that's typically the piece that we've used to decide if IT is administrating the system. That's the only time IT would take it on their budget.
So are you seeking a nod from us on this?
Yeah, if
Well, my opinion, I guess, if I'll speak first, seems to be, $30,000. It seems to be a number one priority for them. And certainly will help reduce their footprint of paper and things they need, probably more efficient, so I would be in support of, I guess I don't get to say.
Well, I agree with you.
We have our first agreement on it. I'd be in support of it moving
Green
forward,
light.
Of the new initiatives or of the budget?
of the new initiatives, well,
Of both of them?
ultimately, we're gonna say here at the end if we're gonna move everything forward. I haven't heard any objection to the capital or the operational at this point, now we're just talking about the 2 initiatives.
Okay. Cause through you, the first initiative was ranked as a 1, which is priority. The other one says should be done in the next 5 years. So I'd be, if we're gonna be making cuts
The
and
next one,
stuff.
what do you mean on the?
He hasn't spoken to that.
Oh, okay,
New initiative.
sorry.
In response, yeah.
Sorry.
so, would you like me to move on to the second new initiative?
Sure.
Okay, so this is for managed detection and response. This is an upgrade to what we currently have, which is endpoint detection and response. It's the current system only provides us visibility to the computer themselves. It doesn't provide us visibility on the entire network. And this upgrade would give us visibility into the entire corporate network. Anything that plugs into our network, we'd be able to know whether or not there's malicious activity. And it's purely just an upgrade to the system we have now.
Well, I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I think that we should be investing in technology to ensure the security and safety of the information within the corporation at the highest level. So when you talk about upgrading the endpoint detection of the endpoints that we have, which are just the desktop, but not necessarily the network, that sounds concerning. And to me, I don't think we should be, from a security perspective, our posture is to be not putting the resources required at that level. We've seen it happens on a daily basis across the world. It can happen here tomorrow. It's something that needs to be definitely taken very seriously. And I'm not suggesting it's not being taken seriously. I'm just suggesting if there are things that can increase that, that's definitely should be a priority.
Well, I agree.
my opinion.
It's twice.
Twice.
And this is not a police issue, this is a corporate
This is
issue.
a corporate
This is
IT
a corporate
initiative, yeah, so,
All the scams going on out there, we need protection and we need those firewalls. You know that because you're an IT expert.
I'm just putting it out there as I would, without having full understanding of what it is you're doing, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it just goes back to security. So you haven't, but in the, this would be a new capital initiative you're looking for here?
No, this is operational.
Operational.
Because, oh, that's an upgrade, this is an upgrade to what's already existing there, but
Yeah.
you haven't put that in above there as well, right, so
Sorry,
it's
it's,
not above in the 1.42 operational, correct?
it would be extra on top of that 1.4.
I would suggest to the committee to add it, and then we would look at obviously what needs to give at some point. I would sooner reduce $46,000 in phones and radios and have a more secure network myself, but that's
I agree on that one.
just my opinion.
So, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, then we have standing committee rating code and committee priority number beside both of those initiatives. So if you want to give your code and priority number for each of those new initiative forms, that will be added to the form to be advanced to through the budget process.
Sure.
So right now, you can see it's an A1 and a C2 that staff have put forward, so you would add your own information in those boxes in those two forms.
So if I may, Chair, the rating chart, so the letter is, A is critical, B is high, C is priority within the next 5 years, or D is nice to do but not strategic. So if,
I mean, given the limited information here, it certainly fits within the high priority of the administration. Is it critical? If it's critical, we should be dealing with it immediate, we shouldn't be even having the discussion, it should just be being dealt with from a critical perspective. So if you've assured us that it's not at a critical state, but definitely needs to be dealt with at a high priority, I would be supportive of a 2-1 or B1, meaning that's just, again, I'm putting it out there to the committee based on that.
The department's ready to go. C2,
You want
go with C2.
C2
Standing
means,
committee rating code, C. Committee with priority, 2.
so you're saying it's only a priority within the next 5 years?
Well, just same as the what they've recommended from the department.
But I'm now suggesting that,
Chair's suggesting.
I'm suggesting that we may consider it to be more of a higher priority than something over the next 5 years.
I don't know the system that I can make that opinion. I'm just agreeing with the department and their rating.
I'm not, well, if we were saying it's nice to do, then it might be a debate. If I'm looking at Rory and saying it's probably more high priority, I'm sure he wouldn't disagree. Rory.
So through the chair, it is a kind of a high priority, but it is something that we could do without for a little bit longer. It's really all it is it's purely a risk management, and it's a reduction of risk. So we are doing much better than we were 5 years ago. We've still got room to improve, but I would be comfortable with pushing it off for at least another year.
I can live with your assessment of that. That's not I just pointed out some obvious things. It doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I don't have the context and the detail to what you have. But I would just point out, just when it comes to IT security for the corporation, I think it is something that always should be top of mind and a priority, to protect the information that we have. That's all.
So Chair, the initiative is ranked as a C, but if I'm listening to Rory correctly, he's not saying within 5 years, he's saying within 1. So I'm confused of why it's ranked as C.
Within the next 5 years, which could be next year.
Next year.
Okay, so, okay.
We could address it that way. I'd like to see it again, like say, this time next year, we should see that on there. If you're telling us now within the next year, I'd like to see that on there, not again next year saying, but still within the next 5 years. Because we have to continue to keep that upgraded, I suspect, and keep up with the updates that are provided to us.
Mr. Chair, do you want to leave the first one as A1 because your rating needs and committee priority should be added there?
Yeah.
Are you leaving that as an A1?
I think that's the A1, because we
Okay.
didn't have any debate on that, right?
Okay.
We were, and then now that this one's not gonna be rated, this one would be a C2. In that sense, I think we're,
Okay.
if that's what we agree as a committee, then I think we're good.
I have just a question on the first one. Who did the ranking on the first one? Would that be police or would that be IT?
So that would be a combination of IT and police, so we would talk about it together and find out how comfortable the police are with it, and then prioritize it within the IT budget accordingly.
Okay, let's, you're good, or do you have concerns? Sure.
If, the question I guess, if the first initiative goes to the police, not $30,000, does the second initiative, could that get bumped up to the A1?
I mean,
It's,
I
I think ultimately in the big picture, it's all gonna be about the big pot of money at the end of the day, right? Like it's, so if we push it over there and that becomes a priority there and this one becomes our priority here, something's gonna
Still
give
come out
and
the
it's still
same
gonna
pot.
come out at the end of the
Okay.
day, in the same wash. It's just semantics and to me and just moving things around. I don't know if that's gonna make any difference, because it's not like you're saying, you guys get this certain allocation, so that's great. If they move that out there, guess what? You get to do this. It's still gonna be where do we cut at the end of the day as council, right? So, yeah, I can do that optically look like that, but still, if we have to cut, we may come back to that one and say, we wanna move that down.
Through Chair to Councilor McKinnon, I think we may, because we've got quite a distance between where draft budget is looking right now and where we will ultimately settle, it may make sense for us to take all of the new initiatives and put them in a single
Done
document.
that in the past.
Yeah, and kind of prioritize them
Yeah, we
based
did
on what
that.
council
We've
feels
done that
are
in the past.
your top priorities, whether they're parks or police or IT.
We did that last year, I believe. Yeah, we
For
decided.
hirings and everything, yeah.
So I foresee that. So that's what I meant, like it's gonna come out somewhere at the end. Do you mind if there's any other questions on those two initiatives? We've moved through those? Okay, so Dan, I'm gonna turn it back over to you if you can go through the communications 2 line items, I think there.
Great, yeah, so we have a fairly modest budget in communications. James unfortunately is ill today, so can't be here to speak to it. James was able to save almost $13,000 in canceling a subscription service in the membership subscriptions category there. So that's a budget reduction this year. We have made provision to increase the staff development. We have relatively new staff in that department, and we have great leadership, so we want to spend a little bit investing in our people in terms of developing their social media skills and media skills to support all our departments. Those are the big items, and resulting in a net projected budget for this coming year of $46,500. Happy to answer any questions.
I have just a question.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Through you to Dan. When you mention professional development on social media, I'm just confused. Doesn't that come with a job description of when you're hired to be a comms person? Or are you saying that there's new trends and things that are modern that are different than were when they came? Is that what you're saying, like more upgrades or?
Yeah, I think even with, as a professional accountant, I'm required to do 40 hours of professional development every year.
Right.
I spend a lot of time in school to do that, but
Sure,
things change, new
Gotcha.
technologies, you need to refresh your knowledge, and
perfect,
it's just about investing in our people. Yep.
great. No, makes sense, thank
Good
you.
question. Okay, so no further questions on that, pretty straightforward. Okay, just gonna move down to the city government and strategic priorities. Is that probably looks more like, would we be discussing that?
Yeah, we're go down a little bit for strategic priorities. What
Was
page
somebody
is,
speaking to that, or 18?
it's on 18?
Dan, do you speak to this one, or?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead then.
Phew, I thought you were batting that one over to me, Dan.
It, not a lot of changes in this budget as compared to last year. If you look at our salaries and benefits, we're forecasting about 2.3 million for this year. I will say, just to provide some context, this is for the CAO's office, 3 directors, all of the admin support staff, the mayor's administrative support team and mayor and council, and also all of the IT staff and our communication staff. So all of those are housed in this one salaries budget. The original budget was 2.4 last year. We had some budget savings because of didn't fill some positions, the strategic priorities officer. We had an IT position that was empty for a little bit, so there was some savings. But our status quo budget was 2.4. We're looking at an increase in salaries of about 177,000. The number changed a little bit from there, but
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. In the past, Dan.
Yep.
This is under city government. This would go back to finance. If you go down to page 19, strategic priority expenses, that's what we covered in the past at this committee. I don't remember going through our chief CAO and all the other salaries. That was a budgetary or a finance committee discussion. That was my,
Not the HR, I thought it was HR, but
or even HR.
yeah, why
I'm
is that
just,
falling under
I think
all
this
of
is quite a detailed budget to discuss at this meeting, because the CAO is not accountable to this committee. I'm just trying, again, I'm just checking.
yeah, and nor is IT or comms.
So that's all, IT services is part of strategic priorities. So is communications and and as you pointed out to me on page 24 in our last year's document, you said, go to this page right here, that's what I'm going to. Like, I didn't think we had to go over the salaries, benefits for solicitors and staff. I wish to carry on, Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Well, I guess I kinda had the same thought in my head, but I was let it go ahead. Because I don't recall, I thought this was, everything you named the directors, the CAO, council, or mayor's office staff, all of those, do they all fall under, is that what we're suggesting, they all fall under this committee? From a budgetary perspective, I thought most of this would have been HR. When I was seeing it, I was like, it was a bit.
My understanding is that HR would be responsible for HR staff. So the city government staffing complement, including IT and communications, are kind of a corporate services, so they don't really report to any one committee or report through any one committee. Certainly happy to take your direction in terms of how you'd like to see it move forward, but we want to get this budget to finance and to council. IT doesn't report to finance.
No, I
directly,
understand
so,
the IT component. I don't think that's a debate.
And communications.
CAO doesn't report directly to finance either, so like
Chantel
there's-
just has, I just wanna make sure it's not technical problems.
I just wanted to make a point, before Dan came on to the city and when Sue was out, one of our previous CAOs moved these departments under this committee, cause at one time, they were gonna put administration and strategic priorities in this committee.
But I don't recall discussing this at last year's
We
budget.
did,
I do not remember. If it's in the minutes, then let's just keep it going.
Well, like I said, we can't unwind that rate. We have it in front of us. We're trying to get through here, and unfortunately, I might even have to ask Deputy Mayor Yankoff to step into the chair here while I did had another prior engagement that I'm unfortunately not able to miss. So Dan, if you feel if there's anything here you want to highlight
Sure.
that bring to our attention, or
Yep. Okay, I'll continue. So $170,000, give or take, in terms of budget increase for this year forecast, really just the CPI negotiated increases on that, no new positions. We have down solicitors' fees, based on year-to-date spending. I think we came through a little less litigious year than we have in the past, so have relied a little less heavily on our legal firm. So we're thinking that we can save a little bit on that and have reduced that budget to about $370,000 moving forward. We've adjusted down the Federation of Municipalities Fees and Membership budget has been a little in excess of what our membership dues are there on an ongoing basis. So we've just adjusted that down to reflect what we anticipate we have received our budget, our billing for this year, which is based on per capita population and that's covered in that budget. We have reduced a little bit on our city government training materials and registration. We just haven't required all of that budget, so I reduced that a little bit. And that's really all we have on that end to discuss. Where are we here? In terms of changes, if there's any questions specifically that you'd like to cover,
I
happy
think
to
Deputy
do
Mayor
that.
Yankoff has a question.
Thanks, Chair. Again, there's just a bit of crossover because it seems like when I was just flipping through the other budgets, every operational budget seems to have staff professional development, staff development, and then we have it also in a citywide one for the city government. So I'm just wondering, so is that different? Is city government, that still that includes the staff and the professional development that we talked about? But then we also had a line item in the communications budget for $5,000 for professional development. And I noticed it in other operational budgets as well, so I'm just wondering like what that means.
So I think if I understood this particular one, and maybe where we need to get clarification and changing the title of this committee, if we're adding, if it is in fact administration falls under here now, that should be clearly identified that administration is under here. So this professional development would be in relation to the administration that was spoke about, so that would be directors, the CAO,
Executive assistants.
executive assistants, that would fall under here. And then the communications and IT would have their own, and then the departments would be just for the HR staff of those departments, if I understood Dan's breakdown of this correctly.
Yeah, so the training and development budget allocation would be for the staff that are in that budget. So, yeah.
So it makes sense to me if that's the way we're like, but I think the fundamental change that, I mean, so I don't know how you can do that, but I think we should be looking to, for clarity purposes, if this is strategic priorities, administration, communications, and intergovernmental affairs, we should be identifying that administration falls within this purview, and then the budgets and that, so maybe that's something you guys can talk about, I don't know.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd have to go back and look at the actual
Yeah.
terms of reference of this committee to see
If that's in there, yeah.
where it resides,
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't mind, yeah, there certainly wasn't a discussion or like a decision for today, but if that's something we get some clarity on, so we're sitting here this time next year, we're remembering that the reason why that is there. And as
Absolutely.
Chantel pointed out, there was obviously some decision made a couple of years ago, and we're 2 years removed and nobody's kind of remembering that situation, so, except for Chantel.
And Chair, and just to say that this is just for certain staff, this entire budget though includes the salaries and benefits for the entire city corporation.
No, it's just that administration,
2 million,
would be more than 2 million. It's
2.4
More than 2 million.
For this whole city.
2.9, yeah,
75.
okay.
So that would just be for
Yeah,
the,
right. Yep, got it, sorry, yep,
for
get
the
it,
individuals that they
Perfect.
identified.
Yep.
I get it. But we could get that identified in the terms of reference, if that's the
Perfect.
case, what that actually means, right?
great, thank you, Chair.
Just on that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Page 18, if I look at Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities.
Mr. Mayor, can I just hold it for 1 sec, please?
You could go.
Just for 1 sec. I know do we have 2 resolution, or do we have 2 RFPs that we need to make a decision on? So we need to have vote. Can we
You
just
wanna
jump to
vote?
them, and then I'm gonna
Jump.
let
And then we can
Deputy
jump
Mayor come
back.
into the seat, and then can you jump back to that, please?
Yes.
Appreciate that. So, Roy, could you just jump to those so that we can have quorum here to vote on those, please?
What page? You want
They're
First one's
down
on,
in
21.
21?
21, yeah, would be the
First one.
first RFQ, I think it is,
yes.
Yep.
for modernizing the network.
Oh, okay.
He takes off on,
He's already read it, Mr. Chair.
we need to agree to move it forward.
Yeah, but he'll come back for
Okay,
it.
we have 2 anyways, okay, let's go, we can go. Go ahead then, Rory.
So yeah, this is a RFQ for network modernization. Brunnet is the one that came back with the best price, $25,150.36, so we're recommending awarding to them. We're also recommending adding one additional device at the cost of $1,964.97 for a total of $27,115.33. And that's all within the approved capital budget.
So, seems pretty straightforward. I know there's always this contentious, there's $300 in the difference between both vendors. I'm sure both are capable, so if it has come down to the procurement assessment and low score, then I would be fine with that.
Okay.
Do we wanna support to move that forward?
Oh,
Sure.
Councillor McKinnon, second by
Yeah,
Deputy
to
Mayor
move on
Hancock.
to,
Move on.
I guess it does go to finance first, or does it go to, right, directly to council?
It will go to finance. Through the chair.
Even though it was already pre-approved money in last year's budget? It still goes to finance.
Again, maybe a process thing that we need to look at. I can see what you're saying, it's already
Mercy.
approved and we're just
So we're gonna
approving.
approve it, and then we're gonna approve it again, and then we're gonna approve it again from last year's budget. Holy Lufton, okay.
Through the chair, Councillor Yankoff, Deputy Mayor, I don't disagree, but that has been our practice and is the expectation.
Okay.
I think we've seen this a couple times, this is not the first, so I think you're.
And in the past council, we saw it.
Yeah, you make a good point. I
Gotcha.
think these are just things that we need to do
Yep.
from an efficiency perspective. And, unfortunately, just don't happen like that overnight, so.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
Roy, can we get you on to the next one, please?
Yeah, so the next one is for vehicle manager servers. This is just the hardware for a product that the police use to track license plates and vehicle registration information. RFQ went out and there was the low bid was $72,000.90. And we're recommending going ahead with awarding to Expert Edge Infotech. And that is within the allotted amount.
This year's capital, 100,000 spent, which is below it, so we have, okay, any questions? No? So we have Mayor Brown and Councillor McKinnon, so we move those forward,
Again, to finance.
again, to finance. I do apologize, I'm gonna just exit early, I think we have one item left, we're gonna revisit the city budget, city admin budget, we'll call it, and for page 18. So if you don't mind, would you mind stepping in for me?
And
Thank you.
just before you leave, Mr. Chair, there are the terms of references.
Yes.
It doesn't say anything about administration.
It was never updated.
That's 2026. It was updated since then?
No, they didn't update it.
But if it's going to be updated, it would have had to gone through council for a resolution and a vote, and we didn't update it,
This is the
so
last one we updated.
that's what I mean. So it was in the process, but really didn't finish.
Thank you.
The council-
Thank you very much, folks, sorry. that
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, do you wanna jump in there, or?
Sure, so I think we left off with, his worship.
Page 18.
Yeah, was, wanted to discuss the Federation of Peon
Thank you.
Municipalities. Yep.
So just under
Your
that,
worship.
Madam Chair, it says the budget was 77,000. Budget change was 16,312, so the forecast for 24-25 is $60,688. We're budgeting 77,000. Mitigation, what's the mitigation? Is that their rent that they pay?
So that should be a budget change and not mitigation, it's just a budget change, so it's a reduction through the chair. It's a reduction to reflect our invoiced membership fees for the current year.
Right, right.
We over budgeted last year essentially.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up, because I had some concerns raised to me by the president of the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities that we've told them they have to get out by July. I think we have to have a full discussion on that because they've been there since 1995, and prior to that, they were on this floor. So we've had a good, strong relationship with the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities, and I think that's part of the partnership. Yes, they can move somewhere else, but this is the centrally located area for them to come, whether they're coming from the east or from the west, north or south. So I really just wanna flag that so we can have a further discussion on it. I know it'll come up at finance for sure. Thank you.
Madam
Thank you,
Chair, just, and I know it's a conversation that the director and I have had since I came. And the context, it's important to understand the context for this decision and that, yes, they've been there. I worked alongside of them when Parks and Rec was in there. And, we have a very critical situation right now with trying to find places for our own staff as we expand. And we've spent time and energy on looking at all of our assets throughout the city, of buildings that we own that we can either reconfigure or whatever. We can manage to find people a spot to do their work. And we have people starting as early as next week that we don't have proper office space for them. So until we have some things shake loose with some of our properties, we've got properties that we're working with people on to try to move things around, but it's been almost impossible to find places for our staff that are coming in, a place for them to reside.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against right now, just so everyone understands that request for them to find another location was not done readily. It was unfortunate that we had to have that conversation with them, but it's a space that's very much needed for one of our departments.
We will always need space as a growing municipal government, always.
I know.
So, and we will always see that, we have offices on this floor, downstairs, up on the third floor, down at 70 Kent Street, out on McAleer Drive. So that's an issue we have to deal with, but we know we have a great partner with the Federation of Prince Edward Island Municipalities. And as one of the two fully serviced communities, I know if they were up in Summerside wouldn't say, exit, find another place. We have to take care of who we belong with. We belong with a strong organization, and I think our support would be, diminished if we said, find another place. So I think that should be part of an inventory. They should be seen as quasi part of the organization. We're not controlling them, it's just that I think we have to just leave that one alone and find other spaces. Thank you.
Through Chair, to you, your worship, is it your wishes that this is a directive of council, that we would withdraw our request for them to relocate? Is that the path forward?
I
just
wanna
need
have that, I wanna
clarification.
have that discussion at finance and administration, because in the end, it's gonna be a financial decision. They do pay, I believe, $400 a month rent, so that is a financial matter. And I'm sure that there should be a full, robust discussion at finance about it. I did raise it at Public Works, because Public Works is responsible for buildings and asset management, so I'm concerned that we stay the course with our partners out there on Lower Malpeque Road, the FPEIM. And it's 1,300 square feet. That's what the space is.
So the folks that are renting there and other folks that rent space from the city, where does that fall under what department? Does that fall under finance? Does anyone know? Because wherever it falls, we should make sure that it gets to that proper standing committee.
Well, I did bring it up at Public
I
Works,
know,
and
I was
that's
there.
asset management.
Yeah, so it seems to be one of those things that falls into a few different ones where it could easily get lost. So if it's at finance, if it's at Public Works, is it Parks and Rec, because it's a Parks and Rec building, like, is it here?
If
No,
I
it's
could just.
operational.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Madam Chair, and when you're dealing with things at this level where a corporation is struggling with placement of personnel, it's a senior level decision. It doesn't fall to Public Works because they're looking after the building. It falls to senior management to try to figure out where we're going to operate different divisions and different departments from. That's where it needs to reside at the end of the day, because it's a corporate-wide issue right now.
So then does it become a budget discussion for next, like, would it become then a budget discussion?
To be quite frank, Madam Chair, this isn't a financial situation. This is very much an operational, critical situation that we need to deal with. And the budgetary piece is supplemental to solving the problem. if it comes to a point where we know we need a certain building and it needs to be renovated accordingly in order to accommodate an entire team or an entire department or whatever, then it would come back through finance for the financial implications. But the corporate-wide picture of where people reside and office relocations and departments, whether they're at 70 Kent or out at McAleer or out at 1 Kirkdale or whatever, that's a senior level decision-making exercise in consultation with the department affected, because obviously we're not going to unilaterally tell an entire department they're moving to XYZ without talking about logistics and public access and all of those kinds of things. So it's very much a corporate-wide issue that will have financial implications, administrative situations, all of that. And it was never my understanding that that's something that needed to be vetted through council, that it was very much an administrative matter.
But needless to say, it would be hard pressed to not have a financial implication, because you'd have to probably retrofit it to suit a whole new group. I mean, because right now, it's pretty wide open. So would it not end up being a financial?
Yes, and to my point earlier, Madam Chair, the corporate-wide plan, whatever that piece might be, depending on what we're talking about, could very well have financial implications that will have a capital expense associated with them. Then it would come through the proper channels to council to address that capital piece. The piece with the Federation did not have any kind of financial implications to be brought to your attention because it was a transition out of one group and a transition in of another group. Therefore, there was, my understanding, there was no requirement to come back through council because it was an administrative matter. And I totally understand what His Worship is saying with respect to the long-standing relationship with the Federation. I wasn't of the understanding that they had any problem with relocating, given the fact they were given so much notice. And discussions with them were, I think our director can speak to it, because his fingerprints were on the conversations with them.
Through the chair, this is a discussion that I had with John Dewey, I believe it was last April, a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And at that time, I told John that we're really looking hard at trying to identify some of our own facilities that we can find staff for, but just to let him know that we expected challenges in that respect, and just to give him a bit of a heads up that we might need to take that space back for some of our own operations. And John's response was, you guys have been a great supporter of us. I know that we're paying a very nominal amount for our space here, but understand completely if you need it for your own purposes, that would be more than fair. And then to follow up that, we were, as you're aware, in touch with John in the last couple of weeks, just to confirm that we would like to move one of our groups of departmental staff out there sometime later this year, and kind of identified the target of midsummer to be able to move in there to put some staff in place. In terms of the financial consequences, I think the financial consequences of looking at other facilities would be much more substantial in terms of securing other space or upfitting other space. So that certainly is a factor in our decision to make the request of the Federation and to work with them to give them adequate time to find alternate facilities. And one of the challenges that John and the Federation will have is finding a spot with a boardroom, because there is a full boardroom that's furnished and fit up there. So, as we have in the past, we'll make our facilities available to them, schedules permitting, to host meetings, that kind of thing, and work with them in terms of the timing. So they are great partners. We support them like other municipalities. We're their largest supporter financially in terms of membership dues. We'll continue to do that and enjoy our working relationship as they do, I think, their relationship with us. But they respect and appreciate that we do have needs for space, and although it is inconvenient and will require them to make some adjustments. I think there is a level of understanding at the staff level at least, and not a decision that we took lightly, but one that we think is in the best interest of the city and taxpayers and staff, so that was the recommended course of action.
There is an administrative issue here, understand that, but there's also a political issue. And I think the deputy knows that, some concern was raised, and it was raised with me too, from the political part of the equation, that I'm obligated to address it as she is. And I think we have to work out, what do we need for space? We keep, it's like the tail's wagging the dog here. We just keep saying we need more space. But we have an asset manager, and I know currently he's serving the role as our interim chief engineer, but we should know what space we need. And we are a growing organization, but it just sounds like, okay, we need it right now. We need it now, or we're gonna need it in 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanna make it very clear. I appreciate the work the Federation of Prince Edward Island municipalities do, not only for the city of Charlottetown and Summerside, but for all municipalities. If it wasn't for them, we'd be a pretty staggered group of trying to negotiate with different levels of government and our partners in Ottawa, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So I want to keep that partnership strong and healthy. Part of that is that we want to work with them in providing space, whether it's physical space, it's financial space. So yes, it's an administrative issue, but it's crossed that line where it's political now, and I think that's why I keep bringing it up at Public Works, brought it up here today, and I'll bring it up at Finance. I think we just have to find a solution on what space we need. Let's say for year 1, year 2, and then we can work on that.
Madam Chair, if I can just speak to that.
Yes.
When I was here as director, we had developed a master plan for offices for different jurisdictions based on what our projected growth was in staffing levels. So we have that. The director and I have already talked about revisiting that plan, doing a further update on that. And if it serves you to understand the bigger picture of what we're up against, both short-term and long-term, then we can certainly present that to you in some fashion, whether it's at this level or a council as a whole or whatever, have a dedicated session on our growth situation. And the other piece of the puzzle is that if it's the council's wish that the Federation of PEI municipalities is part of our master plan for offices, then we would contemplate how they fit into that overall plan. Maybe it's not where they are now. Maybe it's second floor at Kent, maybe it's somewhere else, but if it's the wish of council that those individuals in that organization are part of our master plan on having places for people to sit, then that's your directive. And we'll have to take that in consideration. But I had no idea, quite frankly, that we had to consider the Federation of PEI municipalities as part of our master plan and accommodating people in offices, and if that's the directive, then we'll take it as a directive.
I guess right now, though, I guess you need that directive from council. You can't just have it from committee, from a committee level. So.
As the recommending body, Madam Chair, you would have to, we could circle back, the director and I will circle back on what we would bring forward next, and it would have to be considered as, I don't know how we would address that. Dan, if you have an opinion on
Does it
moving
fall
forward,
under-
how we address this overall.
Does it fall under this committee?
It's usually this kind of thing this is why I'm kind of struggling with this,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, because this type of thing is usually just addressed at an operational matter. But and it wouldn't see council chambers unless there was a budget impact.
Right.
So if this is something that you want to circle back on to make sure the Federation is looked after, then I'm not sure how we proceed, because now it's no longer an operational matter, right? That's what I'm hearing from you, that this is something that has to be considered.
If council wants to say no to it, let them say no.
Okay with his words.
So do you see it, Madam Chair, as being a resolution that would go to the council floor that's saying any future planning around office space has the Federation of PEI municipalities considered in the overall rollout of offices? Is that the
No, I think that
solution?
a discussion could be had with that PEIM and see what they think from a political, looking through a political lens. That's where I'm getting my information. I think you're getting it also. Whereas you're receiving it from the administration.
Exactly, and the administration, from my understanding, thank you for your accommodation all these years, and we're looking for another place, so we had no idea this was an issue.
So would it be smart for the chair and the executive director? So you have both political and operational together with the city to, so you'd have your chair from the federation and the executive director. I guess tomorrow is his
Who's
last
done
day.
tomorrow.
He's done tomorrow, yeah. Yeah, which is why, I think this is why it's become more of the chair's concern, because they're still in the process of hiring a new replacement for John Dewey. So they're looking at this as a timing piece is poor for them. Yeah. I don't know.
And politically for me, Madam Chair, my concern is that, you know what, we'll go to Summerside. And I think for me, that would be
Right.
something I would not want to see happen because
Understood.
this is the central point.
Well, we're the capital city, so.
Yeah, and to your point in terms of timing, I somewhat strategic in terms of allowing John to be involved in the notice, but also because there would be a new executive director for FBIM come in, that to give them an opportunity to be involved in the discussion of where they would be housed for the next generation of management of the Federation. So I didn't want to burden John with the logistics of it because he was on his way out retiring, but also wanted to give him, the ability to kind of introduce it to his successor and staff, and then allow the new executive director to manage the identifying space and making that space suitable for them moving forward. Certainly, we're not alone in the urban area here. The Federation also has good partners in Stratford and Cornwall, and other neighboring municipalities. And I do know that the Federation currently is on strong financial footing. They've for the first time in a long time have had some good surpluses, so they do have some latitude in terms of budget to be able to provide for some other accommodations. So all of those factors have come together to kind of have a window of opportunity here for us to repatriate some of the space that we feel that we really need operationally, but give them a good opportunity to make a smooth transition, not force them into a difficult corner situation, but to work with them and to try to find alternate accommodations.
Just to reiterate what you said, Madam Chair, this is the capital, birthplace of nation. I think it's most appropriate that our Federation head office stay in Charlottetown. That's what I'm saying.
And I also see that, it's a unique situation. I totally respect what the CAO and the director have said in terms of these being operational. This is a very unique situation, being the federation of, PEI municipalities. So it becomes that one of those unique situations like the farmer's market that becomes a political / operational, what's the best path forward in terms of, for the city as well as for the federation. So I don't know how the next steps would look like, but I would like council to be aware of this and somehow council weigh in on this decision, if it's possible. Yeah.
And Chair, certainly happy to sit down with you and His Worship and talk about the political, challenges that you're being confronted or folks are speaking to you about. And there may be some ways that we can, work with the Federation and the board to try to address some of those.
Find a new space for them?
Pardon me?
Finding a new space for them?
Perhaps we have alternate accommodations that might be suitable. Maybe they might have an opportunity to work, somewhat remotely. Maybe there's a downsize or a relocation somewhere else that might work for them but doesn't work for the departments that we have to accommodate. So there's probably a lot of work that we could do to try to work together to find a solution along with the Federation. I'm certainly happy to do that, so.
So what do we do in the short term? Because right now, they currently are under the understanding that they have to be out by the end of June. So what do we do? What do we do? Where do we communicate with this? Do we set up a meeting? I just feel like I'm getting totally into your wheelhouse here and but in the same sense, it's almost February. So if we're gonna be discussing this with them, then I would think it would be something we need to do sooner and at least let them know that there is going to be some open dialogue to this. I don't even feel comfortable that this is what we're supposed to be discussing today in this committee.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'd like to wrap it up by saying
Yeah.
that we should wait for the hiring of the new CEO for the PEIM, their new executive director. That should take place first, because I know that they have some names in place and they should be moving on it very quickly. So as soon as that happens, let's sit down.
So Madam Chair, if we could conclude this, we have all of our department heads rolling in here for 1:30. So if we could just agree that based on what the director has recommended, that we would sit down with the political entity of Federation as well as a person in administration, whether it's Lori or someone else in there, and have a conversation about where we're going with this based on the conversation today. And we'll take, instead of going into council
Sure.
chambers or whatever, this might be something that we can continue to resolve at an administrative level, understanding the political
Pressure.
elements.
And again,
Okay.
that short term, Madam Chair, short term, medium term, what we need, asset plan, that master plan, let's
Yeah.
just take a look at that too.
Yes.
New business?
Yeah, any new business?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to announce that the UPEI Student Union had a Bridges meeting last week with federal, provincial MLAs, federal MPs, senators, MLAs, people in government. They wanna meet with our Strategic Priorities Committee, bring us out to their student union meeting on the 9th of February. And to look at transit, to look at where they're going with their housing. And I said, just remember, the housing issue is a provincial, federal issue. We only get involved when it comes to zoning development, affordable housing advisory committee and so forth. And they said, we understand.
The 9th of February is a Sunday.
Sunday.
That's right, that's when they meet,
Huh,
What time?
6 to 9. But we'd be up first group on the agenda.
Are they sending out a meeting invitation, Your Worship?
They have already sent it out and I'll forward it on. But I just wanted to make sure
Do you
that
want this committee to be there?
you can
Is that
we
what-
can have committee members at it, yes. That's it. I'll get Jackie to forward it on to you. There's also a document from Turner Drake that just finished up their assessment on housing for post-secondary education, so that'll be part of the package going out.
You said 6 o'clock, Your Worship?
Out there, UPEI.
6, yeah.
I'll get the location pinned down. Anyways, it's an invite.
all right, motion to adjourn.
Just
Yes.
just before we slip away, if I may, Chair, we didn't address the strategic priorities budget. Did you want to quickly run through that? It's at the lower part of that, the page.
What page is it? Is it 19? 20.
Page 20,
Hold on just one second. 'Cause
city
I'll-
government, that is,
Bottom of page 19 and
Bottom of page
Government.
page
19.
20.
So last year, we had a budget of just under $60,000. We are only expecting to spend about 45,000, so we've reduced the forecast by 15,000. And accordingly, moving into next year, budget for this coming year, we thought we could perhaps reduce the intergovernmental fees consulting budget of 20,000 cut it in half to 10,000. We didn't spend, haven't spent anything this year on it so far, so we felt we could, because there were no known expenditures in that regard, we could trim that back a bit. So coming up with a forecast, with a budget for the budget ask for next year of 48,500. Just in relation to that, we're also perhaps looking at maybe moving a lot of the expenditures that mayor and council would control. So things like council travel, CAO search, some of those things. In terms of presentation of the budget, whether it happens this year or next, I think probably some of those expenditures belong in the mayor and council budget. Whether we'll get them moved in there this year or not is another question. Time is short, so probably we'll continue with business as usual this year, but longer term, we'd like to move in that direction. That's all I have.
What did you mean by that, like all the,
Travel is always,
each committee or whatever, put it all under the mayor?
I think Jackie McKinnon, I said, look, just leave them there because it's a little more manageable in the departments.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
Environment, sustainability, public works.
Yeah.
What our director is suggesting is consolidate them. They were in the office of the mayor, but I don't think that's gonna happen this year because of how everything's moving quickly.
Yeah, I like it the way it is with the departments personally.
Sorry, I just wanted to get through that so we didn't have to come back to it.
Sure.
So just quickly back
Yes,
to
you
total
will.
projects, in the past, we had projects at 115,000, 2023, 2024, and we spent 63,000, then we reduced it to 30,000. Nothing was spent this year. So some of the projects that we were doing previously, we're not doing them now.
There's been nothing identified.
Nothing in the hopper.
Yeah. And thank you for the reminder, Chair, if I may. There's not a new initiative identified here, but the CAO and I had a discussion yesterday. The new initiative that was brought forward last year in terms of having a city solicitor come on the team to provide better advice on an ongoing day-to-day basis on a lot of our files that our bylaw revisions, those types of things, administrative parts of our operation that we have a daily need for, not a specialized need. So we'll probably bring forward a new initiative, again, for council's consideration to hire a city
So it was
solicitor.
brought up last year.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
under
it-
expenses under office CAO and so forth, correct?
Wasn't that shot down last year by council unanimously?
I think the decision was to, let's give it another year, see how we make out with our fees, and let's talk about it again next year, I think is where we left off last
So
year.
does that almost mean the salary would almost be an in and out, because instead of spending, what was it,
180,000.
that we'd only be spending 80?
Well, I think it would end up being a bit of a wash. We probably wouldn't save a great deal of money, but we would save some on our professional fees with Cox and Palmer. But the thinking of the CAO and myself and others on the team is that to have a ready resource here that can continue files on a continual basis, and to be here to attend a meeting with the CAO with a developer, to provide a legal opinion, someone to be at our meetings, at each meeting, that doesn't have to be paid an hourly rate to attend, and also then can take those files and continue them with the departments after the meeting's finished. We just feel that there would be a lot of benefit to the city to have that resource here, and it would reduce our legal fees generally.
Do you think it would reduce it enough to equal out? Or, so you think that we would reduce our legal fees by $100,000 a year?
Yeah, probably more like, I think we would anticipate that we would save the salary in professional fees. It's probably not gonna save us a lot of money, but I think it would pay dividends in other areas by having better advice, making better decisions.
So we would still be paying the exact same amount to our legal?
No, probably less, because there would be a lot of,
Not equal to
Yeah.
a salary?
like, a lot of our planning advice is fairly procedural and administrative. We wouldn't need to call on Cox Palmer for a lot of that type of stuff. Our bylaw development work, we could do in-house a large extent of it. There would be other aspects like labor relations, litigation, certain real estate stuff that we would still lean on our legal advisors outside.
And who would sit in there every council meeting?
That would be our city solicitor. unless there was an issue that we were dealing with, a labor negotiation, we'd probably have Karen Campbell in again. If it was a lawsuit that we're dealing with, some matter, then we'd have the council that was.
It will come back to finance, we'll be dealing with this, yeah.
And so I guess it can't be moved forward here from this committee to a new initiative yet, cause we don't have it to move it forward.
It had been moved forward last year, it didn't make it to the list this year, but I just wanted to give you notice that we will probably bring that to finance and council.
Okay. So will that be reflective in the minutes, because Justin's not here, it's not in the agenda, so he won't know that unless it's reflected
It'll
in
be in
there.
the minutes, yeah.
Okay, okay, motion to adjourn,
Thank you.
moved by Councilor
Thank you.
McKinnon,
Thank you
seconded
very
by
much.
His Worship. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Just in
Madam
time,
Chair.
you guys don't even get a 1 minute e break.
No.